right. I'm gonna get this thing started. I'm gonna be reading Spirits in Bondage by C.S. Lewis, which is some of his early poetry that he wrote, I think around the time of the First World War, or just after, in 1919. And this was before his conversion to Christianity. So I'm excited to dive into this, but before I do, I'm gonna get settled in. Hopefully you guys will too. So I've got some jasmine green tea right here in my super awesome mystery machine mug that I just love. It's so much fun. I love mugs. I think I've mentioned this in a couple of videos before, but like I kind of collect them, but I gotta be careful because they can take up room pretty quick. But this one was just so cool, I had to get it. So I'm drinking some tea, go with the reading, and I'm gonna have some chocolate. And dude, this is new. I haven't seen this. This is cool, but I, for one, love dark chocolate, but I also really like lime. But I've never seen this like chocolate lime combination, or at least from Lindt. I haven't seen that. So I'm gonna bust this bad boy open real quick, and then we'll get into some poetry. We'll get into the book. Ooh, baby. Come on. Here we go. Do a little snap there. Get the corners. Look at that beautiful square of chocolate. I love that about Lindt, is their bars, like, I feel like break perfectly however they do their lines, their squares. It's like just such a great amount, not too much, not too little. Oh yeah. Man, so I love, oh yeah, so good. I love chocolate in like almost any format, you know, but I think there is a point where you can like add almost like too much. Like I really want to taste the chocolate and then kind of whatever is complementing it. You know, so I like chocolate with almonds, or, you know, another type of nut. You know, like I like nuts and chocolate, very, very good. But I also really like chocolate with citrus. So I feel like some people think it's maybe overplayed or just too common, but like I still love like orange and chocolate. But the lime and chocolate's doing it for me. I'd probably like lemon with chocolate. Like, it's great. Lime and chocolate's amazing. Okay, let's get into this. Spirits in Bondage, C.S. Lewis. So I've read some of his poetry before. I read some of his like narrative poems, and a couple of his other just shorter poems offhand. But I'm excited to get into this. Before I dive in, I just want to say, like, he's a brilliant writer. He's obviously so gifted, but his poetry can be a little tough for me sometimes. And I say that just because the man is so skilled and technically brilliant. Like, you read his poem and you see the skill level. You're like, oh, this is masterful how he plays with these words. But sometimes the artistry, I feel like, I don't want to say it gets lost, but it's just harder to grab onto. I feel like if maybe I heard him read it, or some scholar who's just so good at reading his stuff would be able to make it like flow better for me. Because Tolkien is just brilliant with words in the sense that he makes them very lyrical and melodic, and they just sound really good when you read them. Lewis can do that too sometimes. I just don't feel like he is as consistent for me, I guess, as a reader. For some others, it might be easier. But that being said, let's dive into this. This first one is called Prologue. Sorry, let me get some of this out real quick. All right. So I'll read through it, and I'll do my best to discuss what I think it means or what it's trying to say. Now, this is his early writings. I'm not as familiar with like when he was before his conversion, but I'm interested to dive in and see what it says, see what you guys think. All right, prologue. As of old Phoenician men to the 10 isles sailing, straight against the sunset and the edges of the earth, chaunted loud above the storm and the strange seas wailing, legends of their people and the land that gave them birth, sang aloud to Baal Peor, sang unto the horned maiden, sang how they should come again with the breath and treasure laden, sang of all the pride and glory of their hardy enterprise, how they found the outer islands where the unknown stars arise, and the rowers down below, rowing hard as they could row, toiling at the stroke and feather through the wet and weary weather. Even they forgot their burden in the measure of a song, and the merchants and the masters and the bondsmen all together, dreaming of the wondrous islands, brought the gallant ships along. So in mighty deeps alone, on the chainless breezes blown, in my coracle of verses I will sing of lands unknown, flying from the scarlet city where a lord that knows no pity mocks the broken people praying round his iron throne. Sing about the hidden country fresh and full of quiet green, sailing over seas uncharted to a port that none has seen. It's very like dreamy almost. Oh, I missed the comment. Yeah. Fort Worth. Sorry, Jerry. Yeah, I'm like northwest Fort Worth area. So yeah, kind of on the edge there. I don't know if you're still watching, but anyway, this was cool. It felt very like it. I don't want to assume this about Lewis strictly, but he loved myth and he loved fantasy and story, and this feels like there's that longing for something like that, something old. Is like wanting to be in almost in a different time, a place that has people singing and you know going to places. There's talking about like rowing, I think, and chanting and what will be there, a king, and how the king, you know, is powerful, and it's a hidden country. It's fresh and full of green. It's something new. So I don't want to say it's simple. I will say I feel like this one was more lyrical. It was had more of that melodic sound, that beauty to it, and maybe that is just part of the nature of him being younger and not focusing so much on, I don't want to say perfectionism, but like just trying to do something at the highest level. Maybe it's just more flowing from his heart. It's not as restrained, or also just the fact that it's shorter. It's not like a long narrative poem where he's trying to make things really make sense narratively over the course of like multiple pages. All right, get some mood music going again. This always, I need to figure out how to make this a playlist. I have to use music that's not copywritten. Come on. There we go. All right. Got a little music going. Okay. So in this collection, this is part of the first part here. So the part one is called The Prison House. And this next poem is called Satan Speaks. So this will be interesting. Again, it's not that just because he wasn't a Christian at this time, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Just because Lewis wasn't a Christian at this time doesn't mean that he didn't have some sense of Christianity, or, you know, an idea of what the beliefs were, or, you know, an idea of God and an idea of Satan. But I'm just curious to see how he viewed those things at this time before really like confessing his faith and his belief in God. So yeah, this one is called Satan Speaks. I am nature, the mighty mother. I am the law, ye have none other. I am the flower in the dewdrop fresh. I am the lust in your itching flesh. I am the battle's filth and strain. I am the widow's empty pain. I am the sea to smother your breath. I am the bomb, the falling death. I am the fact and the crushing reason to thwart your fantasies' newborn treason. I am the spider making her net. I am the beast with jaws blood wet. I am a wolf that follows the sun, and I will catch him ere day be done. Wow. That's pretty interesting. Sorry, I'm not trying to take forever. I was just like, it's a lot to take from it. I feel like it's fairly accurate, you know? It's kind of like menacing in a way. And this, I don't know, that's such a weird thing to say, because I was going to say it also kind of draws you in. So it's like, oh, I don't know what's going, like, this is very intense, but you're like, what are you going to say next, kind of thing. So there's a couple lines in here that it's like, as a believer in God, in Jesus, I don't think I'm on the same page, if you will, as he was at this time in terms of like the truth of it. And again, it's not that this has to be perfect, but it's just what you would think, you know, Satan might say. And Satan's full of half-truths anyway, but this line here, it says, I am the fact and the crushing reason to thwart your fantasy's newborn treason. That is just like, I'm like, what does that mean? I think it can mean a lot of things, really. You know, because I think sometimes when we think about fantasy or the fantastical, that it's not real. And I would say generally that's true, but there's truth in our fantasies that we articulate well and that we do for a particular purpose. So if you're using something like that to create a fantastic image of someone's mind so that they can grasp a truth easier, because we all have a sense of wonder and we have this desire for heaven and for beauty and the things that we feel but can't always see, the things that we know but we can't always touch. So this idea that like I'm the fact and the crushing reason to thwart your fantasies newborn treason, it's like no, it's like I'm here to stop your idea of heaven. I'm here to crush your hope, essentially, is kind of how I take that. But very, very interesting poem. So yeah, I think that's one I could reflect on a bit longer and, you know, try and derive more meaning out of. Let's see. Okay. Okay. This one is called French Nocturne. Monchi Lepro? I'm not exactly sure how to say. I don't speak French. I apologize. If there's French in this poem and I mispronounce it, again, I apologize. Let's try it out though. Long leagues on either hand the trench, long leagues on either hand the trenches spread, and all is still. Now even this gross line drinks in the frosty silence divine. The pale green moon is riding overhead. The jaws of sacked village, stark and grim, out on the ridge have swallowed up the sun. And in one angry streak his blood has run to left and right along the horizon dim. There comes a buzzing plane, and now it seems flies straight into the moon, lo, where he steers, across the pallid globe, and surely nears, in that white land some harbor of dear dreams. False mocking fancy, once I too could dream, who now can only see with vulgar eye, that he's no nearer to the moon than I, and she's a stone that catches the sun's beam. What call have I to dream of anything? I am a wolf, back to the world again, in speech of fellow brutes that once were men. Our throats can bark for slaughter, cannot sing. That is fascinating. This is my first time reading these, by the way, so it's hard because I'm trying to like read them clearly out loud. Normally I'm not reading like out loud as I read stuff, so it's, I think, easier for me to kind of intake the words a bit quicker, if you will. So I'm trying to like make sure I enunciate and read and try to like really intake the story of what's before me. So I'm going to kind of glance over this again real quick. Huh. Yeah, it's again, it's one of those things I think kind of relates to the other poem. Was it the, yeah, I guess the prologue poem, of just like a different place in time, and like traveling, you know, like and just getting to a place that I guess you would hope to be, but once you get there, you find that it like kind of has the same issues as other places in the world. Like it's, there's still things like war, you know, there's still barbarism, things like that. Um, but that doesn't mean that the land itself is wholly like bad, right? Like it's still a beautiful place. Um, but there's also roles within that place, right? It's like, what is this line here? With false mocking fancy, once I too could dream, who now can only see with vulgar eye that he's no nearer to the moon than I, and she's a stone that catches the sun's beam. So it's almost like, yeah, like this idea of a place that's beautiful that you want to get to, but then the reality sets in once you're there, and it's like, okay, well, he does this and I have to do this. And yeah, like, and not to that it's strictly pessimistic, but it's just kind of, I don't know, it's an observation. Um, and I think I don't know, it's funny because the way he writes, it's like he has this desire for it to be beautiful and to make it sound beautiful, but he doesn't, at this time in his life, know where that beauty comes from or what he's even supporting exactly what he's trying to say. So not to say that he's unintelligent at this point in his life, but I think there's a searching here. That's what it sounds like. There's this desire for something good and beautiful, and there's a searching going on. So it's really interesting to read. I like that one. Here, I'm gonna get my mood music going again. It keeps shutting off. Again, can't use the copyright stuff, so here we go. Okay, so the next one, it's called The Satyr. When the flowery hands of spring forth their woodland riches fling, through the meadows, through the valleys, goes the satyr caroling. From the mountain and the from the mountain and the moor, forest green and ocean shore, all the fairy kin he rallies, making music evermore. See, the shaggy pelt doth grow on his twisted shanks below, and his dreadful feet are cloven, though his brow be white as snow. Though his brow be clear and white, and beneath it fancies bright, wisdom and high thoughts are woven, and the musics of delight. Though his temples too be fair, yet two horns are growing there, bursting forth to part asunder all the riches of his hair. Fairy maidens he may greet, fly the horns and cloven feet, but his sad brown eyes with wonder, seeing stay from their retreat. Interesting. I feel like I need to kind of reread that last bit, but I don't know. It's just a cool, I think, fun description of a satyr, for one. Again, just I'm really enjoying this. Like I said, if you're just joining in, I've read, this is Spirits in Bondage, C.S. Lewis's poetry from when he was very young before his conversion. I've read his longer poems, more narrative poems, and they're good. But as I mentioned earlier, they're more technical, and they're not as like flowy, at least in my opinion. And so far, I'm really enjoying the the melodic sound and the beautiful words and his rhyme scheme and all that here. I'm really, really enjoying it. But yeah, I like fun little things like this about satyrs and fairies, and he's making music going through the land. Like, pretty straightforward, I feel like. What is this near the end here? I kind of want to read it again. Fairy maidens he may meet, fly the horns and cloven feet, but his sad brown eyes with wonder, seeing stay from their retreat. I'm not totally sure what he's trying to say there, honestly. Again, I think it almost even goes back to the previous poem of like he's just searching still. You know, like he has this sense of wonder. He knows that he has it, but there's like this, again, this like sadness. There's this longing that he can't figure out. So yeah, I just think that's a theme that could probably, I don't want to assume, but like it might just carry through a lot of this early poetry. We'll see. Another sip of my jasmine tea. Cheers. If you got, if you guys are into poetry, I mean, feel free to let me know if you're reading any authors or any other books. I just love literature in general. If you're a fan of C.S. Lewis, excuse me, or Tolkien, drop a comment below. Let me know. And if you like to pair your reading with a nice beverage, whether it's tea or something else, I like to know that too. I always like to, well, maybe not always, but generally, I like to accompany my reading with usually tea, but some kind of drink. Usually it could be coffee even, or, you know, I just kind of like to have something to intake while I'm intaking literature. And it's weird. Well, it's not weird, but it's like, how do you say that? I don't know. Okay. Music again. Poems coming up, guys. I'm just trying to get the mood music, the copyright free music. There we go. Okay. So this one is called Victory. Roland is dead. Cuckoo Lane's crest is low. The battered warrior wastes and turns to rust. And Helen's eyes and Isilt's lips are dust, and dust the shoulders and the breasts of snow. The fairy people from our woods are gone. No dryads have I found in all our trees. No Triton blows his horn about our seas, and Arthur sleeps far hence in Avalon. The ancient songs they wither as the grass, and waste as doth a garment waxen old. All poets have been fools who thought to mold a monument more durable than brass. For these decay, but not for that decays the yearning, high, rebellious spirit of man that never rested yet since life began, from striving with red nature and her ways. Now in the filth of war, the bearsark shout of battle it is vexed, and yet so oft out of the deeps of old it rose aloft, that they who watch the ages may not doubt. Though often bruised, oft broken by the rod, yet like the phoenix from each fiery bed, higher the stricken spirit's its head, and higher till the beast become a god. Very interesting. Yeah. I feel like I want to be careful to not say the same thing over and over as I'm dissecting this, but I feel like I am noticing a lot of similar themes. You know, he mentions Arthur, he mentions fairies, and again, just the nature of things like decaying and things like war and how things don't last, you know, or the things that maybe we want to last don't last, or that if they do, they don't last in the way that we would like them. I think that's more of what he's getting at. But fraud. Sorry, I'm reading it again. The Phoenix. Hi. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot to kind of try and pull out of this one. I feel like he wants to say so much, and he wants something to be interesting and beautiful and inspire a sense of wonder. And he also seems to have a sense of like realism, like, hey, things decay. That doesn't change the fact that the human spirit, the things that we desire, don't just go away in general. Like if you're looking at all of humanity, like those things still come up throughout all of human nature, throughout all of people. So that's very interesting. So this next one is called Irish Nocturne. And if you're just joining, this is Spirits in Bondage by C.S. Lewis, some of his early poetry. So Irish Nocturne, here we go. Now the gray mist comes creeping up from the waste ocean's weedy strand and fills the valley as a cup, if filled of evil, drink in a wizard's hand. And the trees fade out of sight, like dreary ghosts unhealthily, into the damp, pale night, till you almost think that a clearer eye could see some shape come up of a demon seeking apart his meat as Grendel sought in heart. The thanes that sat by the wintry log, Grendel or the shadowy mass of Balor, or the man with the face of clay, the gray walker who used to pass over the rock arch nightly to his prey. But here, at the dumb, slow stream where the willows hang, with never a wind to blow the mists apart, bitter and bitter it is for thee, O my heart, looking upon this land where poets sang, thus with the dreary shroud, unwholesome over it spread, and knowing the fog and the cloud in her people's heart and head, even as it lies forever upon her coasts, making them dim and dreamy, lest her sons should ever arise and remember all their boasts. For I know that the colorless skies and the blurred horizons breed lonely desire in many words and brooding and never a deed. There's a lot, again, to this. It's amazing how much, that's interesting too, I'm noticing, I guess, in these poems. It's amazing how much he can really pack in. And I feel like there's something here for kind of any reader of, for one, C.S. Lewis, reader, lover of poetry, classic, older literature in general, whatever. So it's like, yeah, maybe you don't like the style of this poem. Maybe it doesn't have a good flow or rhythm to you, but there's so much imagery. There's so much being said, where it could be vice versa. And another one of his poems was like, hey, like, seems fairly simple in topic, but was really beautiful to read. It sounded, nice. But yeah, this one, Irish Nocturne, you can just tell the things that he's fascinated by, things that are mysterious. He mentions things a lot, more like naturalistic, more nature themed. Even if it's fantastical, like something like a satyr or the fairies from the previous poem, there's still this sense of like, I mean, I guess maybe even you would say paganism, but it's just this idea of why is he so fascinated by what he came to later realize was creation, God's creation. But, he talks about the moon in other poems, and he talks about trenches and leagues and grass. And, he mentions a wizard's hand being filled with evil drink and ghosts and Grendel, like Grendel's like from Beowulf, a monster, and the Gray Walker, and he's these creatures, and it's not always like super, like it's not. I mean, it's something about a demon in here, but it's not even just always like this horror, scary thing. But it's just like, what is that? Am I supposed to be scared of this thing, or at least have a respect for it? That it could potentially harm me, or it could show me something and teach me something, or I could find something else about this thing that would influence the way I did something else in the world, or inform the way I did something else in the world around me. So again, I'm not sure if that's the best like way to talk about this poem specifically, or again the more specific nature of what he's trying to say in this poem. But I think I'm noticing certain things, certain themes and patterns so far in this poetry. Okay. Once again, if you're just joining, sorry that I'm looking down. I'm just getting some mood music going, some copyright-free music to go along with the poetry. There we go. My thing keeps shutting off on me. Okay. This one is called Spooks. Again, my C.S. Lewis, Spirits in Bondage. Spooks. Last night I dreamed that I was come again unto the house where my beloved dwells, after long years of wandering and pain. And I stood out beneath the drenching rain, and all the street was bare and black with night. But in my true love's house was warmth and light. Yet I could not draw near nor enter in, and long I wondered if some secret sin or old unhappy anger held me fast, till suddenly it came into my head that I was killed long since and lying dead. Only a homeless wraith that way had passed. So thus I found my true love's house again, and stood unseen amid the winter night, and the lamp burned within a rosy light, and the wet street was shining in the rain. Yeah, I don't think there's anything strictly too profound about this one. As I mentioned about some of the other poems, the earlier readings, is that he was just fascinated by the mystical and the supernatural, although he wouldn't want to, at this time in his life, fully forthright have said like, oh, I believe in that. He wanted to believe in that, but his rational mind was like, oh, no, like, it's just fun. It's just make believe. It's just, but if you know anything about Lewis, obviously as he went on further in life, it's like, well, why are you so interested in it, right? You know, it's like, what could it be? You know, and it was just undeniable that he was interested in those things. And I think he tried to take the supernatural out of the supernatural, if that makes any sense. He tried to see it more as nature or just story or you know. Again, if you're watching this and you're a C.S. Lewis scholar, feel free to drop comments below and correct me or guide people and have a clearer idea of, you know, his early life and beliefs at this time. You know, I've read a lot of Lewis, but it's also been a lot of time between certain books, and I don't remember everything perfectly. Even so, it's still fun to read this if you have an idea of who he is and what he might be trying to say in these poems. But it's like, it's interesting. It's, you know, how did he even come up with that thought of like going to his lover's house as a ghost? Why would he want to do that, you know? I mean, I guess that speaks again to a powerful thing that no matter what you really believe, you know, you have a strong sense of love, you know, and again, that comes from God, whether you believe that or not, but God created our emotions. God is love. So there's a desire to love and to be loved. And I guess his thought was like, again, that doesn't ever depart from you. So whether you're alive or dead, you have this desire to be loved. So it's pretty interesting. I like that one. More music. Again, I'm about to read. If you're just joining, I'm just getting some mood music going. There we go. Okay. This one is called Apology. All right. If men should ask, Despoina, why I tell of nothing glad nor noble in my verse, to lighten hearts beneath this present curse, and build a heaven of dreams in real hell. Go you to them and speak among them thus. There were no greater grief than to recall, down in the rotting grave where the lithe worms crawl, green fields above that smiled so sweet to us. Is it good to tell old tales of Troynovant, or praise of dead heroes tried and sage, or sing the queens of unforgotten age, Brynhild and Mauve, and Virgin Bradamant? How should I sing of them? Can it be good? To think of glory now when all is done, and all our labor underneath the sun has brought us this and not the thing we would. All these were rosy visions of the night, the loveliness and wisdom feigned of old. But now we wake. The east is pale and cold. No hope is in the dawn, and no delight. Man, I wonder if some of this, in this poem in particular, and again as a whole, some of the, again, I don't know if pessimism is the right word, but it's like there's this want for hope, but he can't fully acknowledge it. It's like there's this, it's like, yeah, it was better to be hopeful in certain times when there was romance, when there was beauty and whatever, but, you know, I think he's just very kind of like a realist in this point in his life. It's like, well, no, like, yeah, we can hope for it, but it kind of only in our dreams, sort of, you know. So it's interesting to see later in his life where he got to, and how a big part he and Tolkien played after World War II in bringing hope to people, you know, with their stories and with their fantasy, you know, stories like Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings, things like that, how they were able to write things and write, you know, in Lewis's case, essays and do talks on the BBC radio and you know, encourage people during and after the war, you know, that there is hope, that, you know, that life isn't only death, that life isn't only, you know, pointless, you know, like that what we do matters, that it affects the people around us, courage matters, you know, it paves a brighter future for the people after us, and that that is noble, you know. He said something, what was it? Yeah, I guess that, yeah, he's like, how should I sing? Can it be good? Yeah, and kind of like the things that we do under the sun is, I mean, is there this, I think he's saying, is there like any point to that? And all these rosy visions of the night, the loveliness and wisdom feigned of old, but now we wake. So it's like, yeah, it's like now we got to come back to reality. The east is pale and cold. No hope is in the dawn, and no delight. Oh, that's sad, man. But it's cool again, like I said, it's nice to know that where he came after this in his life. So even though he wrote this and it's real, you know, it's what he was feeling during the time, and that's not where he ended, you know, at the end of his life. He was able to see the east, and that it wasn't, you know, just pale and cold, and that there was hope in the dawn, and that there is delight in a new day, and that there is joy in life, and that, again, that comes from God, and that's an image of our eternity with him, that we get to spend with him when we accept Christ and get to live, you know, with him for eternity. Okay. So I'm about to read the next one, guys. I just got to get some mood music playing again. It keeps shutting off. Can't use the copyright-free stuff, or have to use the copyright-free stuff. Excuse me. Here we go. Okay. This one is called Ode for New Year's Day. Woe unto you, ye sons of pain, that are this day in earth. Now cry for all your torment. Now curse your hour of birth, and the fathers who begat you to a portion nothing worth. And thou, my own beloved, for as brave as e'er thou art, bow down thine head, Despoina, clasp thy pale arms over it. Lie low, with fast-closed eyelids, clenched teeth, enduring heart. For sorrow and sorrow is coming, wherein all flesh has part. The sky above is sickening, the clouds of God's hate cover it. Body and soul shall suffer beyond all word or thought. Body and soul shall suffer beyond all word or thought. Ooh, just read that, sorry. Till the pain and noisy terror that these first years have wrought seem but the soft arising and prelude of the storm, that fiercer still and heavier with sharper lightnings fraught, shall pour red wrath upon us over a world deform. Thrice happy, O Despoina, were the men who were alive in the great age, in the golden age, when still the cycle ran an upward curve and easily, for them both maid and man, in beast, in tree, in spirit in the green earth could thrive. But now one age is ending, and God calls home the stars, and looses the wheel of the ages and sends it spinning back amid the death of nations and points a downward track. And madness has come over us in great and little wars. He has not left one valley, one isle of fresh and green, where old friends could foregather amid the howling wreck. It's vainly we are praying. We cannot check the power who slays and puts aside the beauty that has been. It's truth they tell, Despoina. None hears the heart's complaining. For nature will not pity, nor the red god lend an ear. Yet I too have been mad in the hour of bitter paining, and lifted up my voice to God, thinking that he could hear the curse wherewith I cursed him because the good was dead. But lo, I am grown wiser, knowing that our own hearts have made a phantom called the good, while a few years have sped over a little planet. And what should the great Lord know of it, who tosses the dust of chaos and gives the suns their parts? Hither and thither he moves them. For an hour we see the show of it, only a little hour, and the life of the race is done. And here he builds a nebula, and there he slays a sun, and works his own fierce pleasure. All things he shall fulfill. And oh, my poor Despoina, do you think he ever hears the wail of hearts he has broken, the sound of human ill? He cares not for our virtues, our little hopes and fears. And how could it all go on, love, if he knew of laughter and tears? Ah, sweet, if a man could cheat him, if you could flee away into some other country beyond the rosy west, to hide in the deep forests and be forever at rest from the rankling hate of God and the outworn world's decay. Wow, that is intense. Ode for a New Year's Day. It's like a very, I feel like, funny title, you know, and I think it's intentional, you know, this juxtaposition of like, Ode for a New Year's Day, let's get excited. It's like, but again, here's reality. What he thought was reality, you know, at the time. And I don't know, I can't remember, because I feel like he started reading George MacDonald maybe around this time. I don't know. He might have been a little older. I'm not sure. I feel like, but I know when he was young, he started reading George MacDonald and became a very big fan of George MacDonald. But he was not a Christian, and he didn't believe in God, or didn't strictly want to. But George MacDonald would write about God, but he couldn't deny his enjoyment of reading MacDonald. He loved, you know, his style, his imagery, the way he crafted story, you know, his pacing, whatever. He just really liked to read him. So he kind of like, in a way, made an exception. But while he was doing that, he was being heavily influenced as well. And I think being open to the idea of God, even if he, you know, wouldn't have probably admitted it at that time. But it's funny because it's like, if you read this, and if I'm understanding it correctly, there's this idea that, you know, all of this is God's fault. If he created it, it's like, if there's war, if there's pain, if he gets mad, you know, it's like, how do we get to say you can't be mad because you're God? But also there's this like sense of like, that's kind of unfair. but you don't exist anyway. But you, it's like there's this like back and forth of like, you don't really exist, I don't believe in you, but there's things in the world that I don't like, and I'm gonna blame it on you. It's very strange. And I could be misinterpreting that a little bit, but that's how it comes across to me. And I just think I think it's a little funny, even though it's intense. It's like, dude, pick a lane. That's a weird thing to say about Lewis, but it's like, again, he's young, he's brash, he's, like I said, probably a fan of McDonald at this time. So he's potentially, and I haven't really read McDonald, so I don't know, but like potentially even trying to emulate maybe some of his imagery, if you will, maybe not his ideas at this time, because again, I don't think he was in perfect alignment with that. But again, it's fascinating to kind of see the things he thought about and struggled with at this time. And I would be interested to even reread some of the things that I read. Again, having this sense of who he is in his early writings, and then just seeing how maybe he shifted position clearer. So I might read something now and be like, oh, I remember from his poem how he used to talk about this. So now this is like, that would be a fun process. So that might take some time though. But this next one is called Night. I'm reading Spirits of Bondage by C.S. Lewis. If you're a fan of Lewis, let me know. Drop some comments. If you've got a favorite book, favorite essay, whatever, I'd love to know that. But here we go. This is called Night. After the fret and failure of this day, and weariness of thought, O Mother Night, come with soft kiss to soothe our care away, and all our little tumults set to right. Most pitiful of all death's kindred fair, riding above us through the curtained air, on thy dusk car thou scatterest to the earth sweet dreams and drowsy charms of tender might, and lovers' dear delight before tomorrow's birth. Thus art thou wont thy quiet lands to leave, in pillared courts beyond the Milky Way, wherein thou tarriest all our solar day, while unsubstantial dreams before thee weave a foamy dance and fluttering fancies play about thy palace in the silver ray of some far moony globe. But when the hour, the long expected, comes, the ivory gates open on noiseless hinge before thy bower, unbidden, and the jeweled chariot waits with magic steeds, though thou frowning, thou frowning from the fronting rim, bending to urge them, whilst thy sea-dark hair falls in ambrosial ripples o'er each limb, with beautiful pale arms untrammeled bare, for horsemanship to those twin chargers fleet, dost give full rein across the fires that glow in the wide floor of heaven from off their feet, scattering the powdery stardust as they go. Come swiftly down the sky, O Lady Night. Fall through the shadow country, O most kind. Shake out thy strands of gentle dreams and light, for chains wherewith thou still art used to bind. For chains wherewith thou still art used to bind, with tenderest love of careful leeches art, the bruised and weary heart in slumber blind. Man, that one, again, it's amazing. Like so much imagery packed into one thing. That's one that honestly that I feel like I might struggle with the most in terms of what he's trying to say, other than the fact that he's just trying to write something beautiful, which I think he did. Yeah, I mean, it's just about night. He's talking about stars and, probably stars falling and Milky Ways and the heavens, and, calls the night, "O Lady Night." There's a romanticism about it. Shake out thy strands of gentle dreams and light. Yeah. So again, it's just this kind of, this sense of wonder, this desire to see beauty in the night as well. And what's cool, the way he talks about the sky and the Milky Way, and I think you even noticed this from the previous poem as well, is he has a fascination with the heavens, and I think science at this time in general as well. And it's like, how do you marry the two, or do you, and how do you talk about like those two things, like science and the heavens, how do those interplay with one another? But I think it's evident as by the fact like he wrote his space trilogy later on, which again, there's a lot of fantasy elements to it, but it's amazing the way, if you've read those books, how he puts the two together. So at this time, I don't think he really was able to do that, but it's cool to see the early thought process of how he thought about the two different things. So this next one is called, let's see, why did Jesus call you? Is this one of your poems, Wesley? Are you a poet? Well, I'm about to read this next poem here. Let me know if you're a poet. I'd be very interested. I write poetry as well. I'm gonna get some mood music going real quick again, because it keeps shutting off. There we go. Okay. So again, reading Spirits in Bondage by C.S. Lewis, his early poetry. This next one is called To Sleep. Okay. I will find out a place for thee, O sleep, a hidden wood among the hilltops green, full of soft streams and little winds that creep, the murmuring boughs between. A hollow cup above the ocean placed, where nothing rough nor loud nor harsh shall be, but woodland light and shadow interlaced, and summer sky and sea. There in the fragrant twilight I will raise a secret altar of the rich sea sod, whereat to offer sacrifice and praise unto my lonely God. Due sacrifice of his own drowsy flowers, the deadening poppies in an ocean shell, round which through all forgotten days and hours the great seas wove their spell. So may he send me dreams of dear delight, and draughts of cool oblivion quenching pain, in sweet half-wakeful moments in the night to hear the falling rain. And when he meets me at the dusk of day to call me home forever, this I ask, that he may lead me friendly on that way and wear no frightful mask. Very interesting. Okay. Yeah, this is interesting, to sleep. And I think it's evident that we all want good sleep. I don't know anyone who doesn't. Yeah, maybe you don't sleep much, or you don't want to go to bed because you have like tasks that you want to do. But even so, when you sleep, you want to sleep and you want to sleep well. And I think that's part of what this is about. And again, the beauty of sleep, you know, if you dream, you want those dreams to be good. Like, you don't want to have nightmares. So even though, again, it's a bit pagan, he's making everything like a god, if you will, idolizing certain things. Even though he, again, at this time isn't acknowledging God, it's just he's doing it in the form of story that he likes, in the form of myths, and this idea that you can engage with inanimate things or voiceless aspects of nature. And so he's just, again, trying to articulate this want and this desire to have like good dreams and good sleep, and that at the end of it all, wherever he's carried away, that it would still be beautiful. I believe that's what he's trying to say. So this next one's called In Prison. Give me just a second. I'm gonna get more music going for us, because it sounds like it just stopped again. Get that going. All right. Again, reading Spirits in Bondage by C.S. Lewis, his early poetry. So this one is called In Prison. I cried out for the pain of man. I cried out for my bitter wrath against the hopeless life that ran forever in a circling path, from death to death since all began, till on a summer night I lost my way in the pale starlight, and saw our planet, far and small, through endless depths of nothing fall, a lonely pinprick spark of light, upon the wide enfolding night, with leagues on leagues of stars above it, and powdered dust of stars below, dead things that neither hate nor love it, not even their own loveliness can know, being but cosmic dust and dead. And if some tears be shed, some evil god have power, some crown and sorrow sit upon a little world for a little hour, who shall remember? Who shall care for it? Man, just existential thoughts, man. Just, it's interesting. I wonder if at this time, if he really dwelled on these thoughts much, or if he just put them into his writing and tried to like kind of repress them in a way. I don't know. That's just a thought, an idea I had, but it just seems like it's almost like he writes with like this dash of brilliancy to just have fun almost. But it's like, these are really serious thoughts and images, and I'd be curious to know, again, like how deeply he really did think about these things, or if he discussed them with other people, or if this was his way of discussing them. But yeah, just like, this imagery of space, of the planet, and that it's a speck of light and all around it, and like, does it matter? It's like there's this underlying question of like, is there purpose? Does it matter? Like, do any of the forces of nature, around it, do they care about this planet, about life? And I want to be careful too, because I don't want to presume too much. Like, I don't think he's always just so hopeless when he writes these things. I think some of it is just to kind of be a little dramatic sometimes. I couldn't tell you which one specifically, but I think that is happening in some of his poetry. Is like, I just want to write something that sounds cool, that people might be like, oh wow, the imagery, so I don't know if that's happening specifically in this one, but I kind of get that feeling a little bit across some of these poems. Let's get more of this in here. All right, guys, about to read the next one. Just getting some mood music going once again. Okay, this one, it's called De Profundis. Again, Spirits in Bondage by C.S. Lewis. If you're a C.S. Lewis fan, let me know. Tolkien fan, let me know. If you like poetry, I'd love to know that. Favorite books, all that. Love to know where you're watching from, if you're enjoying the process and the insight that I'm hopefully giving. But yeah, here we go. De Profundis. Come, let us curse our master ere we die, for all our hopes in endless ruin lie. The good is dead. Let us curse God Most High. For 1,000 years of toil and hope and thought, wherein man labored upon and still wrought, new worlds and better thou hast made as naught. We built us joyful cities, strong and fair. Knowledge we sought and gathered wisdom rare. And all this time you laughed upon our care. And suddenly the earth grew black with wrong. Our hope was crushed and silenced was our song. The heaven grew loud with weeping, thou art strong. Come then and curse the Lord over the earth. Gross darkness falls, and evil was our birth, and our few happy days of little worth. Even if it be not all a dream in vain, the ancient hope that still will rise again, of a just God that cares for earthly pain. Yet far away beyond our laboring night, he wanders in the depths of endless light, singing alone his musics of delight. Only the far, spent echo of his song, our dungeons and deep cells can smite along. and thou art nearer, thou art very strong. O universal strength, I know it well. It is but froth of folly to rebel. For thou art Lord, and hast the keys of hell. Yet I will not bow down to thee, nor love thee. For looking in my own heart, I can prove thee, and know this frail, bruised being is above thee. Our love, our hope, our thirsting for the right, our mercy and long seeking of the light. Shall we change these for thy relentless might? Laugh then and slay. Shatter all things of worth. Heap torment still on torment for thy mirth. Thou art not Lord, while there are men on the earth. That's crazy. I noticed again some themes that came up from one of his previous poems, like cursing God or whatever. But again, I think he was reading George MacDonald at this time, and he had, a little bit of a Christian upbringing when he was a small child. So he has, in the sense of myth and story, this idea of who God is, or at least supposed to be, and that he's supposed to be good, and there's supposed to be light. But he doesn't recognize that. And he doesn't obviously believe it. And again, I'm not trying to strictly assume, but from my knowledge, hopefully it's accurate in what I'm remembering, he just really, really loved literature and good literature and stories. So he's trying to operate within the idea of who God is and supposed to be, while also being edgy, or at least it seems to be. He's trying to kind of create his own style, his own spin on how he views God, or maybe how people should God, because again, he's atheistic, he's, a realist and all that stuff. It's just so funny that he can't get away from the imagery of God and the beauty in his own words, even though he's talking about cursing him and things like that. There's still, it's written well for sure. But what this last part I found very interesting is laugh then and slay. Shatter all things of worth. Heap torment still on torment for thy mirth. Thou art not Lord, while there are men on the earth. It's just crazy. That, I think, is the perception of a lot of people of God, is that you're supposed to be good, but it seems like you just mess with us, or that you cause pain. It's not that God causes pain, but he is here to relieve us of that pain, and provide escape and redeem us from all of that. But this last line hits, man. It's thou art not Lord, while there are men on the earth. Now, that's not necessarily the reality, but in a way, it is in the minds of men, right? It's as long as they don't trust God, if they don't believe he's good, if they see the light, but they don't see that light as actually saving them from the darkness, pushing the darkness away. There's that mentality that men can have of you're not my Lord while we're here, men trying to make themselves God, which is, again, just so ridiculous. But that is a very interesting read, very interesting poem. Okay, cool, music's still going. This next one's called Satan Speaks, which he had another one titled that earlier. So, interested to see how this one goes. Ironically, it was written very well and very beautiful in a way, but at the same time, I mentioned the other one was kind of menacing. I wonder what the tone of this one will be. So, again, this is called Satan Speaks by C.S. Lewis. I am the Lord your God, even he that made material things, and all these signs arrayed above you, and have set beneath the race of mankind who fought their father's face. And even while they drink my light of day, dream of some other gods and disobey my warnings and despise my holy laws, even though their sin shall slay them, for which cause dreams dreamed in vain, a never filled desire, and in close flesh a spiritual fire, a thirst for good their kind shall not attain, a backward cleaving to the beast again, a loathing for the life that I have given, a haunted, twisted soul forever riven. Between their will and mine, such lot I give, white still in my despite the vermin live. They hate my world, then let that other God come from the outer spaces glory shod, and from this castle I have built on night. steal forth my own thoughts, children, into light. If such an one there be, but far away, he walks the airy fields of endless day. And my rebellious sons have called him long, and vainly called, my order still is strong. And like to me, nor second none I know, whither the mammoth went, this creature too shall I go. That is very interesting. I'm cautious to even say what I think he's really trying to say here. At first read, at first idea, it's almost like he's saying God is the enemy. If you will, like God is Satan, like God is actually saying these things. I could be misinterpreting that. So forgive me if I am. Either way, it still plays into his idea of the role of God and Satan. You know, it's still very much present, his idea of like, you know, God is supposed to be good, but do we see that? Is he really good? There's still that underlying question of moral character of God and if morality truly exists. So I don't know if I want to dive too much further into this one because I think it is very, very interesting and I don't want to cause confusion. But I think that's a cool thing about poetry in that it causes us to reflect and to search for meaning and to search for truth. So if you are just getting into poetry or never have or you want to, I highly recommend it. And I wouldn't be intimidated either. I feel like people get intimidated by poetry because they're like, oh, I don't know what it means. It's like, you don't always have to know what it means right away. I think that's, again, it's like the words work on you. Now you gotta be careful. You have to use discernment. You don't want, if it's bad poetry or if the message is bad, you don't want that to settle into your heart, you know, into your spirit. But, you know, you want to be able to search for truth in a way that you're not accustomed to. Or at least I feel like a lot of people want to do that, you know, and it's just like, I don't want to say like anything else, but, you know, we have all these different ways to engage with art and beauty. Like I love movies. That's one of my top ones, you know, movies, TV shows, music, paintings, you know, poetry. Poetry, I think just not enough people really take the time to give it a shot. Because like I said, I think people are just so intimidated, but even so, like maybe you read something and you're like, I don't really know what that means, but I feel a certain way. Like I feel like at peace. You know, like you'll notice those things as you start to read poetry, or you'll read something like you'll start to get excited and you're like, what exactly am I excited about? And then maybe you reread it. So highly encourage people to read poetry. Get this music going here real quick. Okay, this next one is called The Witch. Trapped amid the woods with guile, they have led her bound in fetters vile, to death, a deadlier sorceress than any born of earth's distress, since first the winner of the fleece bore home the Colchian witch to Greece. 7 months with snare and gin, they've sought the maid o'erwise within the forest's labyrinthine shade, the lonely woodman half afraid. Far off her ragged form has seen, sauntering down the alleys green, or crouched in godless prayer alone, at eve before a druid's stone. But now the bitter chase is won, the quarry's caught, her magic's done. The bishops brought her strongest spell, to naught with candle, book, and bell. With holy water splashed upon her, she goes to burning and dishonor, too deeply damned to feel her shame. For, though beneath her hair of flame, her thoughtful head be lowly bowed, it droops for meditation proud, impenitent and pondering yet, things no memory can forget. Starry wonders she has seen, brooding in the wildwood green with holiness. For who can say in what strange crew she loved to play, what demons or what gods of old deep mysteries unto her have told, at dead of night in worship bent, at ruined shrines magnificent, or how the quivering will she sent alone into the great alone, where all is loved and all is known. Who now lifts up her maiden eyes and looks around with soft surprise upon the noisy, crowded square, the city oafs that nod and stare, the bishop's court that gathers there, the faggots and the blackened stake. Talking about sticks right now. Okay, a bundle of sticks. Okay, it's not a slur. This is old English, I should clarify. Also, YouTube, if you're listening, talking about sticks. Okay, blackened stake, where sinners die for justice' sake. Now she is set upon the pile. The mob grows still a little while, till lo, before the eager folk, up curls a thin blue line of smoke. Alas, the full-fed burghers cry that evil loveliness must die. That is interesting. I've also, again, I feel like I've noticed in these past poems, there's an interesting blending that he does of like things that are holy versus unholy. Because like, again, an idea of God, an idea of Satan, an idea of good, an idea of bad. But since he hasn't solidified his belief, he hasn't admitted to the structure or the reality of good and evil, like these things are good, these things are evil, because he has no basis of which to say this is good and this is evil. He doesn't mind playing with the blending of those things sometimes, and it's subtle sometimes, but you know, he's talking about like her prayer and like to gods or demons, and there's a line in here that he used the word holy at one point, which is like, that is most certainly not holy, but you know, let's say like he does that. I think part of it he does potentially, again, kind of guessing here, for fun, like just to see if people would get a reaction out of it, to see what kind of, you know, maybe even why he would associate words like that with kind of the antithesis of their meaning, you know, because he's a very smart man. It's not like he doesn't know what certain things mean. But yeah, I think he's just trying to create like an idea of this person. That's the other thing, is an idea of this witch or whatever, and what that type of, you know, pagan worship and idolatry would mean to her, because she's not penitent, obviously, what it says in here. So maybe just it's part of like giving you an idea of what the character thinks in the poem. So interesting. Gonna get some more music going here. Okay. Drink some more tea here. Let's see. I think I might read one more, and then I might read one of my own poems from my book Spirit Well. I published this earlier this year, and unlike Lewis at this time in his life, I wrote this with hopefully a sense of hope. There's different themes. There's, you know, some of them are kind of weighty, some of them are more dramatic, some of them are very light. But one thing I hoped to really impart to people was hope, in that there is objective reality in the world, that there is truth, and that peace can be found in a relationship with God, that we can see beauty around us even in dark times, that we don't have to constantly be distracted or scared of all of the noise around us, that God has the victory, and therefore there is hope. So if you're interested, my book's called Spirit Well. It's available on Amazon. If you can't find it immediately, you can just search Spirit Well Joel White. It's also linked all over my YouTube channel, and I'll, if I keep this video up, I'll probably link it in the description as well. So I'll get to one of my poems here in a second, maybe a couple, but I'll read one more, by C.S. Lewis. This next one is called Dungeon Greats. So piteously the lonely soul of man shudders before this universal plan. So grievous is the burden and the pain, so heavy weighs the long material chain, from cause to cause, too merciless for hate, the nightmare march of unrelenting fate. I think that he must die thereof unless, ever again across the dreariness, there came a sudden glimpse of spirit faces, a fragrant breath to tell of flowery places, in wider oceans, breaking on the shore, from which the hearts of men are always sore. It lies beyond endeavor, neither prayer, nor fasting, nor much wisdom winneth there. Seeing how many prophets and wise men have sought for it and still returned again, with hope undone, but only the strange power of unsought beauty in some casual hour can build a bridge of light or sound or form to lead you out of all this strife and storm. When of some beauty we are grown apart, till from its very glory's midmost heart out leaps a sudden beam of larger light into our souls, all things are seen aright. Amid the blinding pillar of its gold, 7 times more true than what for truth we hold. In vulgar hours, the miracle is done. And for one little moment, we are one with the eternal stream of loveliness that flows so calm, aloft from all distress, yet leaps and lives around us as a fire, making us faint with overstrong desire, to sport and swim forever in its deep, only a moment. Oh, but we shall keep our vision still. One moment was enough. We know we are not made of mortal stuff, and we can bear all trials that come after, the hate of men and the fool's loud bestial laughter, and nature's rule and cruelties unclean, for we have seen the glory we have seen. Wow, that's a really interesting one. He seems much more hopeful in that, and I think the point of it is like there's times where we notice our own mortality, but yet there's so much beauty around us, and we think, well, there's got to be more to life than this, right? It's like, what's after? And I believe in this poem he's saying there's those moments of beauty, those moments of light, that even though, again, at this point in his life, he hasn't fully acknowledged God or fully accepted God, that he feels the presence of God. And he feels that love. He feels the power of the eternal, of what is beyond him. And if you know what that is, you know that the reality, the goodness, the truth of that is like that comes from God. That desire, that feeling of peace. But it's interesting that he still, even though it doesn't seem like he's fully declaring that who God is or acknowledging that God is good, he is acknowledging that people want at least something like that. They want that to be true. They have that in their heart, and that there's moments where it's like, I'm letting all my what would you call it? My strictness, my lawfulness aside, just for the sake of my soul, for the sake of my spirit, to embrace that presence, that love, that peace around me. And I think that's really what he's trying to say. And then obviously we know as later in life, he came to the truth of the matter, and accepted Christ. So that's a very interesting poem. It's also an interesting title. What was it? Yeah, Dungeon Greats. So yeah, cool. So I'll probably keep doing this. Keep doing lives of Spirits in Bondage. It'll probably be maybe 2 more, I don't know, to kind of go through and discuss. And then I'll probably do like a video on my channel that's just like a full review of Spirits in Bondage. Excuse me. But before we go, I'll read some of mine. And if you're joining in while I'm looking down, I'm just getting some mood music going for some poetry. Okay. So here we go. Spirit Well. I wrote this. You can get this on Amazon. Let me kind of flip through here and see which ones I want to read. I'll read this one. It's called Blessed Boldness. A place worth seeing beyond a vision exists for pilgrims far and near. You must go, take up the mission, for the hour is nigh that this land becomes clear. Two swords, double-edged, one to take. Cowardice, one called, crusted in blood. Boldness, the other, lit with flames its make. Either choice will bring a flood. To trust divine wisdom from God's own hand, or conjure weightless pagan teachings, you must decide how to travail for the land. As did Christ, prepare to face many beatings. A blessed choice now it starts, for boldness alights on others with his favor. Should we ever doubt to steal our hearts, let that of the blessed Son be ours to savor. I like that one. I mean, I feel like it's pretty straightforward. There's choices that you have to make in life. You have to choose God or not, and lives are at stake. So choose wisely, you know? And I don't say that to be callous or cold or calculated strictly in this moment. I know for some people this is a process, but I do say this in a way with a sense of urgency. Like, the times we live in, I'm not trying to be scary, but like, they're pretty crazy. And if you've read the Bible, believe the Bible, and there's other religions that, you know, talk about certain things similar, but, you know, we talk about the end times. Now, if you read the Bible, we don't know the day or the hour of when Christ is going to return. That doesn't change the fact that we are in the end times. You know, Jesus could come in 5 years. It could literally be another 100, 1,000 years. It doesn't change the fact that we're in the end times if you look at all the prophecy of what is to come before Jesus returns. And a lot of the things that were prophesied that would happen before he returns, like, they're happening. So that's why there's a sense of urgency. It's not to scare you, because God is so loving and he's so willing. Like, he died for you. Jesus died on the cross. He rose from the dead. You know, like, he defeated sin in the grave. So all you have to do is just acknowledge that and trust him and confess him as your savior and believe in him. Call out to him, ask for him to save you, and he'll bring you into eternal life. And you'll have that joy and that peace indwelling in you when the world is crazy, when things are around you, and it's supernatural. It's hard to explain other than just to say that Jesus radically transforms your life. And you don't want to, when that happens, you don't want to hold that back. And you just want people to know that peace. You want people to know him, to know their savior, and to have eternity with him. It's like, it's not like, for me, it's like, I don't want to keep this a secret. It's like, I'm going to heaven and forget you guys. Like, absolutely not. Like, I want everyone to enjoy the goodness of God, man. Like, and also this may just be my perspective, but like, I'm so blessed, and I know this, like, I have an amazing family. It's a big family, and I've got great friends as well. That's not to say I haven't faced certain trials and difficulties in life. I definitely have. Whatever the case, I'm so grateful for the goodness in my life. And I remember from a young age, I'm like, man, I love these people. I want to live with them forever. Like, and I get to, you know, and it's like, and I want the family to grow bigger, you know, and I want my friends, I love them so much. I want them to be a part of my family. And as a Christian, they are. Like, we all are the body of Christ. We all are God's children. It's a beautiful thing. So that's what this is. It's just like, be bold, be courageous. Let people know that Jesus is good and that he loves them, you know? That's what that poem is. Let's see, I read probably another one. Let's see, what should I read here? Oh, it's a long one. Let's do that maybe later. I'll read this one just because I think it's fun. And there's meaning to it as well, but it's pretty short. It's called Inner Symphony. The incredulity of my symphony has given me an epiphany. Thinking words and saying thoughts that are rising up inside of me, though they are met with irony, no less give me peace. The effusive treasures of my spiritual Heidegger. Yeah, I like words. I like to play with them. I like how they sound. So it's like, I've got a lot I want to say, whether that's in poetry, whether that's when I make films, like I'm a filmmaker, as an actor, I've got things I want to say. Like from that last poem, like it's important for me that people know who Jesus is and that he loves them. That's important. It's not just that he was a man who walked the earth, which he was, like some wise man. He's so much more than that. He is God, like, and he loves you. That's so important to me. So I've got things I want to say, so I try to have fun with that, using fun words, and that whenever I am able to articulate them, even if they seem a little childish or silly, it brings me a sense of peace. So it's this like this gushing forth of the things that are deeply within me that I get to share with people and that I enjoy. So that's what that one was. Let's see. It's another good one here. Oh, I like this one. Get a little sip here. And this might be my last one. I might read a couple more actually. Okay, let's read this one. It's called Don't Spill the Tea. A delicious brew for me and for you warms the cockles and begins conversation. Aroma and flavor of words so new keep us from poking tepid consternation. Another cup to the brim with green. Steady now, savor every drop. Delightfully sip and peacefully glean. Joyous moments where darkness stops. There's no time to waste on gossip or slander. We intend to glorify God, you see, with choice words to illuminate his grandeur, all the while not spilling the tea. So I wrote that one from my book, Spirit Well. And part of that is I don't know if people are using it as much anymore, but people have this like slang term of like, oh, I've got some tea for you, or like, what's the tea? Like spill the tea. Like spilling the tea has always kind of been, a phrase of like, what's the news? But I think it became more sinister in that like, oh, I've got some tea for you, or what's the tea is like, instead of just like giving you information or exciting news, it has now really become more gossip. I'm not saying gossip wasn't a part of the original phraseology, but heavily now it's like, oh, we're gonna gossip, and that's not good. Gossip is bad. It's bad for you. It's bad for your soul. It's bad for people around you. Easily can get into spreading lies. Like, do not gossip. If you want to talk about something, talk about it, but you don't have to assassinate someone's character or their virtue, or try to put somebody down to make yourself look good, or share someone's secret just because you know it, or whatever. Like, especially if that's gonna, again, just make someone look bad in someone else's eyes, when there's literally no reason to do that other than you're just insecure and you want people to think of you a certain way. But if anybody has any sense or any wisdom and they realize you're gossiping, you'll realize that that's actually going to paint you in a bad light. So I didn't like that. And also because I like literal tea, like I'm drinking tea right now, some jasmine. So I just thought it was such a perversion of something I so thoroughly enjoy. It's like, don't take tea and turn it into something evil. Don't take tea and turn it into this like, let's have gossip time. It's like, no, let's actually have tea. Let's sit down and like have a good conversation. And that's another thing that I think is fun about this too, because it doesn't, the idea of it, hopefully, comes through and transcends just the topic of discussing tea in the poem itself. Because like, you could have coffee with somebody, if you smoke a cigar or a pipe, whatever, or if you just like to have, cookies or something, like, sit down and have a snack together. Like, it's just this idea of like breaking bread with somebody and talking about things that matter and enjoying somebody's company. And even if it's a silly thing. Like, it doesn't always have to be super serious, but enjoying company with people, breaking bread with people. That's what that poem's about. This next one I'll read, it's called Life of Prayer. And I mean, I pray, I believe in God, and there's times where it's easy to pray, there's times where it's really, really difficult, and depending on, maybe where you go to church, your theology, your belief system, there's like different ways to pray and all this stuff. Ultimately, prayer is it's just talking to God. It's just communing with the Lord, letting him know the things that are on your heart and listening too. I think that's something that we need to focus on more. It's not that God doesn't want to hear your heart or what you have to say, but I believe God wants to speak to you as well, and he wants to say things. But this I wrote at a time where if I remember correctly, it was kind of difficult for me to pray. It's not that I didn't want to. I was just going through some things and I just felt burdened and heavy. So I wrote this as a way, like as a prayer kind of, and also just to like ask God to help me with prayer. So this poem's called Life of Prayer. Teach me how to pray without ceasing, in a manner that is pleasing. I will lift my voice despite my stubborn reasoning. I need to pray, that's for certain. As I speak, you unload my heavy burdens. Lead me back to your garden, where I'm watered by the blood and find your pardon. With faith I must pray, no need to take chances. Help my unbelief in my circumstances. Drown me with hope as the enemy advances. Bless me with trust as I praise with dances. Without words I pray, my spirit cries for me. You understand the incoherence of my plea. Holding my marrow, you intercede so I'll be free. How amazing that you pray for me. Help me listen as I pray. Your word gives life more than anything I could ever say. I like that one. It's a fun one. Let's see. I think I'll end with this one here called Tell the Stories. So again, this is my poetry book, Spirit Well. Not only is the idea of this poetry to hopefully encourage you, make you feel lighter, more peaceful, and bring hope, it's also a commission if you're a creative. And you don't have to strictly be an artist, like you don't have to be a writer or a painter or a filmmaker or whatever, but you might like to cook or something. Like you might have a hobby like gardening or whatever, and that's like a creative outlet. Whatever the case, I think people can be creative in so many different ways. So this is for anybody. And I don't know if I would say especially, it seems a little unfair, but this is a commission to artists. So it's for everybody as a whole. But my point being is that if you have something to say, something to bring into the world that's beautiful, that's full of light, that honors God, that glorifies him, that builds the kingdom, that helps people, uplifts them, it's so needed. It's so needed in the world in this day and age. And we all live in a story. We live in God's story. He's the author and the finisher of our faith. So we all have a role to play. And just to think about that, like God decided, like he created you specifically to be on the earth, to be part of the story, to have a part to play, to do something, that you have, people around you, you have a sphere of influence, and that he, if you allow him, will use you to influence those people around you, and then those people around them, and the way that spreads. But it all works in his grand design. And just like with any great story, we want to watch it again. We want to see the things we missed. We want to incorporate that into our lives, into the real story. So we have this fascination for stories, and stories are imbued essentially in everything around us, in all forms of art. You look at they say a painting is worth 1,000 words, right? What are those words? They're a story. You put them together. It's like, what do I see? I see someone staring at a boat on the ocean. But it's not just that, right? It's like, it's a boat with like a red sail. It's like, well, why is it red? Who is the person that's leaving? Why is the person watching them leave? Where are they going? What are they going to accomplish? Like, it's a story. So photography, painting, music, lyrics in the music. There's stories to tell, and stories matter, and they point to the real story and to the real storyteller. So honor God with your art and with your stories. So this poem is called Tell the Stories, and it's a commission to tell the stories. Time to tell a story, act it out. Around the campfire, watch and listen. Heroes and villains battle and shout as children squeal and eyes glisten. Time to tell a story, pick up a brush. Strokes of color reveal a place where all are welcome in the rush of exuberant play that gives us chase. Time to tell a story, write it down. Plan the plots, fill in the blanks. An enthralling tale, a shining crown, rests on many, filled with thanks. Time to tell a story, record the scene. Filters and lights, actors and pages. Bring the life intended for screen. Many great films decimate cages. Time to tell a story, however you choose. Step out in faith, release your narrative. Quality is needed, there's no time to lose. Start the chapter, it's time to give. So yeah, if you got a story to tell it, man. But yeah, once again, this is my book, Spirit Well. Yeah, I have a poem that I'm gonna maybe try and write here in just a minute. I've felt something on my heart to write recently. It's been a little difficult because I've been trying to figure some certain things out in life, and it's like sometimes I'm like that seems like a distraction. I don't have time for that, but I've noticed it's been on my heart so much, and I don't want to think, because I don't know. Like for me, I'm trying not to have this mindset of like, well, if I'm going to write it, it has to amount to something, and that like I have to write another book or whatever. I don't want to put that pressure on myself. But I enjoy writing poetry, the process anyway, and so I don't want to deny myself that pleasure. And so even if I just share it with a couple people or just share it on social media one day, that may be all that poem ever needs to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be in another book. So I would encourage you in that as well, like within that last poem is like, just because you're creating something, it doesn't have to be this huge thing. If you feel like you're supposed to release it a certain way, just give it to people, just give it how you're supposed to give. And just, you'll be surprised at how that really affects people and how it blesses them. I've had people comment on stuff before, and it's really touched my heart to know how it affected them, even if it's just one person. It's pretty amazing. So anyway, if you'd like to check out more of my poetry, it's called Spirit Well. Again, it's on Amazon. Search Spirit Well, Joel White. You can find it linked all over my YouTube, on my actual website, joeljwhite.com. And yeah, thanks for being here, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're watching this after the fact, after the live, feel free to drop comments of what your favorite poems were, what you look forward to in the future from me in terms of reading things or just new content, reviews in general. But I hope that you've enjoyed these early poems by C.S. Lewis, as well as some of my own. And thank you again for tuning in. I always appreciate your time. And yeah, I hope this blessed you. And it's getting late here now. So I don't know what time of day you're watching this, but I hope you guys have good dreams, that you're blessed. And yeah, I'm just so grateful. I hope you guys are encouraged and full of hope. Love you guys. Bless you.